The movie begins in Afghanistan. A drone flies over a small village, catching the locals' attention. They quickly get ready for an attack. Soon, a group of American soldiers arrives but finds the village empty because everyone is hiding inside. The team moves forward and spots a suspicious man with a bomb. They surround him and threaten to shoot if he doesn't drop his weapon. At first, the man ignores the threat, but when he sees the soldiers are serious, he pulls out a gun. The soldiers then shoot and kill him. Jake tells Colonel Mason about the dead man and the bomb, asking for permission to disarm it. Mason refuses, but Jake ignores him and successfully disarms the bomb. At that moment, a secret second bomb goes off and kills most of the soldiers. Soon, men come out of the buildings and surround the Americans, opening fire. A vicious gunfight begins. American soldiers are falling everywhere, and only Jake and Mason are left alive. Jake runs to join his colonel and is almost shot by the enemy, but Mason saves his life just before a helicopter shows up. 5 years later, Jake is trying to adjust to civilian life while taking medicine for his PTSD. He works at an auto shop owned by Earl, where he has to deal with some difficult clients. After work, Jake goes home to spend time with his family. He always tries to stay happy for his son, but in private things get tense when his wife points out they have many unpaid bills. Jake promises to take care of it like he always does. When Jake puts his son to bed, he shows a picture and tells a story about his old squad, mentioning that Mason was at the hospital when the baby was born. Jake feels sad that he hasn't talked to Mason in a while. When his son asks if he ever killed anyone, Jake avoids answering the question. The next day, Jake goes to work and finds some gangsters there. They say Earl owes them money. When Jake tries to make them leave, the leader, Fresh, tells his men to beat Jake up. But Jake uses a wrench and defeats them all easily. Fresh then shows his gun and makes Jake stop. Fresh leaves with his gang, saying there will be a round 2 in the future. After that, Jake talks to Earl. Earl admits he used to be in a gang but was lucky to leave that life and build a home. Earl promises to always protect their block so Jake doesn't need to worry about his family. Jake feels like he's still in a fight and calls his family to check on them. His wife says he should have called the police instead of getting involved. Later, when Jake goes home, he sees Fresh in his car. Fresh mentions payback before driving away. Jake rushes inside and finds his family dead. He breaks down, screaming and crying. The police arrive and try to ask questions, but Jake snaps and leaves in his truck. He drives through the city looking for Fresh's car, thinking about his happiest family memories. Jake finds the car outside a shady club, so he rushes inside with a gun and starts shooting all the gang members without hesitation. When he is about to kill Fresh, the man explains that he didn't mean to kill Jake's family but had no choice. This doesn't change Jake's mind and he shoots Fresh too. 5 months later, Jake is in prison for his crime, and his PTSD gets worse as he spends most of his time thinking about Fresh killing his family. One day, Mason visits Jake and offers to help reopen the case. Jake refuses because he thinks he deserves to be in prison. He tells Mason he got his revenge and has no remorse, even saying he would do it again. Jake then asks Mason to never come back and tells the guard to take him back to his cell. That night, Jake remembers his days in the army, and how Mason retired after saving his life. Later, Jake is visited by a stranger named Ramsey, who says he runs a private task force. Jake doesn't let him say more and again asks the guard to take him back. Later that evening, Jake is dreaming about his family when suddenly masked men break into his cell, sedate him, and kidnap him. When Jake wakes up, he finds himself out of prison and learns that his kidnapper is Ramsey, who admits he has been watching Jake for a long time and is impressed by his record. Ramsey's group, called Section 8, doesn't follow the rules. Ramsey believes they can help Jake find his purpose again. Ramsey also mentions that Jake's son would rather see him as a hero than a convict. So Jake decides to join. In Washington, D.C., Ramsey introduces Jake to the team: Elias, Ajax, Brunner, and Mueller. He shows Jake their base, which he calls the Batcave. Ramsey explains they have 8 agents in Washington and 8 more around the world. Their orders come from the State Department and the NSA, focusing on national security threats. Since Jake is new, Mueller will be his guide and accompany him on missions until he becomes experienced. Jake will get a bank account, an apartment, a vehicle, a backstory, and an alias, because, to the outside world, he is considered dead. Ramsey then leaves, and the team begins Jake's initiation process. Ajax starts to provoke him, pushing him around and throwing some punches. Jake refuses to fight and does his best to dodge them all, but Ajax becomes so aggressive that he makes Jake snap. He pushes Ajax to the floor and almost stabs him in the eye with a pen, but suddenly a memory of his family flashes in his mind and he calms down. Then Jake leaves, and a frustrated Ajax points out that Jake has shown fear, and that means he doesn't belong with them. but Mueller disagrees. Sometime later, Jake and Mueller get on a plane and discuss Jake's first mission. The target is a man called Castillo, a defense contractor that also works as a weapon dealer. Recently, he's put his hands on some dangerous schematics that he'll sell to the Russians. So Jake's job is to retrieve the schematics and kill Castillo and his men. Jake realizes they're essentially a group of assassins and doesn't look forward to killing again. In the evening, the duo makes it to Mexico, where they find Castillo about to make the exchange with a Russian negotiator in a warehouse. While Castillo and the Russian argue, Jake sneaks around and discreetly kills a guard. The noise makes both gangs think the other is setting them up, and this turns them against each other. So their argument soon escalates into a full gunfight. The gang members begin dying one by one and even make a car explode, which causes the fight to finally stop. Then Jake comes out and kills every survivor before looking inside the car, where there are two very scared women. Jake ignores them and takes the schematics before leaving. Later at the base, Ramsey scolds Jake for compromising the integrity of their mission by leaving those two women alive. Jake tries to explain they were victims and accuses Ramsey of disregarding human life, so Ramsey threatens to send him back to prison if he doesn't obey. Then Jake is dismissed, and Mueller tells Ramsey that Jake did good, but Ramsey is still hesitant, so Ajax cuts in and implies that Ramsey made a mistake. Once he's left alone, Ramsey calls someone named Locke. The next day in Nevada, mercenary Locke breaks into a hotel and kills a few employees before entering a room, where he scares away the women before confronting his victim. The guy knows Ramsey sent Locke and tries to bribe him with a huge amount of money, but Locke kills him anyway. Afterward, Locke escapes through the hotel's casino, but the guards immediately get suspicious and go after him. Locke easily beats up every guard that comes close and begins running, breaking things on the way and knocking out the guards that keep coming. Eventually, he takes out his gun and shoots a few bullets just to cause panic in the gambling crowd. He also kills a guard before going outside and stealing a car to escape. Meanwhile, Jake moves into the new house and is shocked to find a frame with a bunch of pictures from his time in Afghanistan. This reminds him of a conversation he had with Mason, during which Jake blamed himself for getting him injured and Mason made sure to comfort him. Later, Jake is drinking at the pub and Mueller joins him, so Jake tries to get some information out of her. Mueller doesn't know anything about Ramsey, but she explains that she used to be in the army and punched a commander officer that reprimanded her. Sometime later, Ramsey gives them their new mission. They must retrieve some digital information about a sensitive case and kill Senator Graham, who is a traitor to the country and has paid many people to stay free. Security will be very strict, so Ramsey reminds everyone, especially Jake, that they must fight back. A few hours later, the group makes it to Graham's event in California disguised as landscapers. Mueller sneaks inside to kill all the guards she can find, and eventually, security learns of the situation. So they take Graham away in a van. While Mueller hacks the senator's computer, Jake chases after Graham, shooting a few bullets to no avail. The van is too fast for him, so Jake takes a shortcut by jumping over a hill and manages to block the road. The guard tries to fight him, but Jake quickly kills him before approaching Graham, who begs for his life while saying he has a family. Jake is suddenly overwhelmed with memories and decides to let Graham live. However, the team shows up and Ajax kills Graham before reminding Jake not to hesitate. Later at home, Jake struggles with his guilt and cries while looking at pictures and drinking. Suddenly he sees masked men running outside his window, so he hides before they enter his home. The men look for him in every room, but Jake manages to escape through the back door. The next day, Jake goes to see Mason and tells him the whole story. Mason mentions he knew the real Section 8 was dismantled in the 90s, and the one functioning now is just a cesspool of disgraced agents from the Army, CIA, FBI, and the like. They even have important connections in Washington, so if Jake is running from Section 8, he's in serious danger. Mason has never heard of Ramsey and promises to make some calls. He also agrees to help Jake with some money and a gun. Afterward, Jake returns to his hometown and gets a call from Ramsey, who wants to meet to talk things out, but Jake refuses. Then Ramsey asks Mueller to call Locke, who is currently hiding in Argentina, to give him the mission of killing Jake. Sometime later, Jake bumps into his son's best friend, and as they talk about the tragedy, he learns that before his family's murder, Fresh was seen with people in black suits like the secret agents seen in comics. Before he can get any more information, Locke shows up and opens fire, so Jake pushes the kid into a shop before running away. Panic takes over the area as Locke kills a few civilians, and soon the police arrive only for Locke to shoot them as well. This distraction allows Jake to escape, so Locke steals a police car and goes looking for him while calling Ramsey to tell him what happened. In the evening, Jake is hiding at Earl's shop and remembering how Earl raised him after his parents died. Suddenly the computer starts beeping to announce the arrival of the team, so Jake and Earl grab some weapons to fight them. Jake almost gets shot by Elias, but Earl quickly takes him out. Next, Brunner jumps on Jake, and they begin fighting on top of a car when suddenly Ajax shoots at them. Brunner turns around to yell at his carelessness, and Jake uses the chance to stab him with a screwdriver. When Ajax opens fire again, Jake uses the body as a shield and retrieves his gun to start shooting back, but he soon runs out of bullets. Ajax has a few left but wastes them on purpose because he wants to fight Jake hand-to-hand again to prove he's better. The men begin exchanging hits all over the shop and Ajax tries to stab Jake, but he ends up getting shot by Muller. Afterward, Jake checks on Earl, who is fine, and gives Jake his car keys so he can escape because the cops are coming. Later in the car, Muller says she saved Jake because she also wants to leave Section 8. Jake doesn't think he can trust her and demands to be taken to wherever Ramsey's staying. The next day, the duo arrives in Montana. They sneak through a forest to find Ramsey's cabin. Suddenly, Jake is knocked out from behind. Jake dreams about his family again and wakes up tied to a chair. He sees Ramsey and Muller, who is working with Ramsey. Ramsey says he has a surprise. Jake is shocked when Mason enters the room, revealing he's also working with Ramsey. Mason explains that the organization needed an agent with Jake's skills, so he told them how to get to Jake. This means they paid Fresh to kill Jake's family. Jake feels betrayed by Mason, but Mason says Jake was wasting his talent on cars and a kid. The group leaves Jake alone. Mason pays Ramsey and Muller the agreed money. Ramsey says they should kill Jake because he's a liability. Mason agrees but looks inside. While Muller counts the money, Mason frees Jake and confesses that he was hired to take down Section 8 from the inside. He now wants Jake to help finish the job. Mason sets off the alarm on purpose. When two guards come to check, they kill them quickly. More men come, and the duo shoots them all as they search for Ramsey. Another gunfight starts, destroying their surroundings. Ramsey sees them and hides with Muller, offering Jake the money from Mason. Jake refuses with a shot. Ramsey tries to blame Mason, but Jake doesn't believe him. Muller sneaks around and tries to shoot Jake, but Mason warns him. Mason takes the bullet and knocks down Muller. Jake checks on Mason and Ramsey tries to grab the money. Jake scares him off with a few shots. Mason asks Jake to finish the job and then dies. Muller tries to shoot Jake but is out of ammo. They fight hand-to-hand. After exchanging hits, Muller stabs Jake in the shoulder. Jake uses the chance to turn her hand against her and kills her. Jake goes outside and sees Ramsey flee in a car. He steals a vehicle and chases him. Both men open fire while driving. Ramsey gets distracted and crashes. Jake walks to the wreck, and when Ramsey insults him for hesitating, Jake finally kills him. In the evening, the police take Jake to meet General Savoy, who Mason worked for. Savoy offers Jake a job and a fresh start if he joins his team, but Jake says no because he has nothing to fight for. Savoy still gives Jake his card. Later, Jake goes home and finds Locke waiting for him. Locke wants to finish his job because his reputation depends on it. They start fighting hand-to-hand, using any object or furniture they can find. When they move to the kitchen, they both grab knives and keep hitting each other. Locke throws Jake to the floor, but Jake gets his gun and kills Locke. The next morning, Jake sends a voice message to Earl, thanking him for everything and saying he's leaving. On a bus, Jake sees a mother with her son, which makes him remember his own family. Jake calls Savoy to accept his offer, saying he now has something to fight for. Savoy welcomes him to Section 9. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video.